Welcome into the Shopfix channel, a community joined together for the love of woodworking. In this episode, I want to show you how you can utilize a band clamp in woodworking. And I think a band clamp is incredibly useful for gluing up boards, and mainly to glue up boards that need equal pressure on all four corners. And that's kind of like a picture frame, or what I have here is a top of a coffee table. I'm going to be inlaying some boards to make the top, and I have 45-degree miters cut in all these corners, and I need to glue them together. I'm going to show you everything you need to know, all the tips and tricks of using a band clamp, and I've used a band clamp for so many projects. I've glued so many picture frames together with a band clamp, so I think I have some useful tips for you. Let's get right into this.
Shopfix. It's for the love of woodworking.
Alright, so before we begin gluing up these boards with the band clamp, I kind of want to show you my setup that I got going on here. So instead of wasting money on a plastic sheet or a board that you waste by getting glue on, I simply took a couple of trash bags. Actually, I just needed two, and I cut it on the side and the bottom and then unfolded it, and it made for a great little thin plastic sheeting to go over my work surface so I don't get any glue on it. The next thing we got going on here is I do have thin boards underneath the corners and also in the middle. And that's actually really important because you don't want the boards that you're gluing up stuck to the surface of wherever you're working. And make sure the surface of wherever you're working is flat as can be. Maybe a workbench, or I have this table saw workstation that I work off, and it makes for a great place to glue up because I know that it's completely flat. Alright, so my next tip has to do with working with thin material. If I put the clamp on the bottom of it and rest this on the level surface and put pressure on the clamp, that clamp is going to lift up, buckle, and probably snap off. Just note that you want the clamp in the middle of the workpiece if the workpiece is thicker than the clamp, or you want the workpiece in the very middle of the clamp if the workpiece is thinner than the clamp. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's cover the features of this band clamp. So this is a Bessie style band clamp, and you'll see that it has an arrow, and that's indicating where the band comes out. And to make it larger, you simply have to pull, and it's going to pull the band outwards. And this is how you adjust to make sure you have the right size. And all you have to do is go around the perimeter of your whole project and make sure whatever you're clamping on, the joints where you're gluing, these come in contact with that joint. You want the joint right in between, right there. And so once you have it around the perimeter and it's adjusted correctly, where there's no tension, but the band and the corners right here are barely touching, then you can use this adjustment lever right here. And if you turn it to the right, it tightens the band clamp. And that's where you get the tension to glue. And you want to make sure that this is all the way loosened so that you have plenty of clamping pressure as you tighten that band up. And that's essentially all you have to do. And then when you're done, you can use this lever and you can wind the band right back up. And so now I'll show you an example of how to use this on the project that I'm working on.
On most band clamps, the tabs are removable, so you can remove them from the band and move them into position much quicker than sliding it all the way around.
So now we have our band clamp properly positioned around the perimeter of the project that we're gluing up. And we made sure that these are right in the corners of the joints. Now, we want to make sure that the band clamp has some slack in it. Not a ton, but you want some slack so that you can push the corners out a bit, and then you can remove the pieces that you're going to be gluing. And I'm going to simply put on glue on this piece and the far piece. So now we can begin gluing.
The first step in this glue up process is to apply a decent amount of glue and spread it along the surface in which you plan to glue up. Through my experience when gluing up 45-degree miters, I found it much easier to apply a generous amount of glue to one side and then let that spread evenly to the other side when I put the pieces together. When you apply glue to both sides of your intended glue joint, usually you'll just get unnecessary squeeze out. Now, before applying any pressure onto these joints with the band clamp, I'm going to go around and slightly adjust these by hand until they're meeting perfectly in the corner. Once I've adjusted all the boards so that the corners align correctly, I can go ahead and take the lever on the band clamp and turn to the right to tighten the band onto these joints. After applying a little bit of pressure so the boards don't move out of place, I'm going to move the tabs into the middle of the board.
Well, now we have our 4 boards joined together with glue being held by the band clamp. And to make sure you have the right pressure, I would just listen for the band tightening around the joints and also feel on this lever when it starts to get pretty hard to tighten, where you can't just tighten by hand very easily. Then you know you're getting to full pressure. And if you can still tighten with little pressure on the lever right here, then you know that you're kind of under tightened. You kind of have to tighten a little bit more. However, I can tell you that you're going to run into problems if you over tighten a band clamp. If you start over tightening, the wood is either going to compensate and move in a direction you don't want to, or the clamp is going to compensate and it's going to move in a direction you don't want to. Now we're going to leave this at full pressure for about an hour, and then I'm going to relieve some of the pressure and then leave it maybe an hour or 2 after that. You don't really need to leave this on overnight. These joints are going to set up, within a couple of hours. Well, the band clamp has been on these boards for over 3 hours, so I'm going to release the pressure and then we'll see what our final result looks like. Well, I really hope you enjoyed these tips and tricks on how to use a band clamp for woodworking, and you can get some really awesome glue ups. I'm really excited about this coffee tabletop. And if you enjoyed these tips, don't forget to smash that like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the Shopfix channel, consider subscribing today. Well, I wish you the best of luck with your future projects. Take care.